and welcome to the One Lonely Owl podcast. My name is Terry and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are new here, thank you so much for giving me a shot, and if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I am delighted to say that we now have 143 subscribers. I'm super excited about that. There is nothing in this world that gives me a dopamine hit like checking in on the numbers and seeing those grow. I've talked about this before. I don't do this for any other reason other than to build a community. I've virtually met some people online who I would now consider friends, and I just think that this is just a wonderful way to do that. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for coming back if you're a returning viewer. And right before I forget, I want to say hi, Mom, because I don't want to forget, and I probably would. To get it also out of the way, I will also apologize again. My husband is at home today and he is doing a little bit of work around the house, so if you hear some banging or clanging or things like that, you might hear, or I may have to stop the video. So I will apologize in advance if you do happen to hear any of those things. The next segment, typically we talk about mug up, and usually I have something in a cup. I've talked about this before. I don't have anything with me today. I normally have like a little table set up that I have right here, and because of the work my husband is doing in the house, we had to move things around. There was a ladder over here. There was a bunch of stuff going on. So I don't even have a table to lay anything on, so I did not bring a glass of water with me today, but I typically would bring that. Again, if you're new here, my apologies. I'm repeating myself for those that have been here before, but I am a current cancer patient and undergoing immunotherapy treatments. I also have had, because of some of the treatments that I've had in the past, I have some kidney troubles, so water is my best, I guess, weapon, if you will say that, to combat kidney troubles. So I drink as much water as I can throughout the day. I will also share, because I may forget later, that on September the 4th, which is like a week away from today, I will be having some procedures done, so I may be a little bit late in podcasting in my next 2-week episode. The other thing I will share is I'm recording this a day early because tomorrow I have my systemic treatment, which takes about 2 hours, and then I have another appointment following that, so I just wanted to make sure that I got this recording in and done, ready for you, and uploaded for tomorrow. Alright, with all of that out of the way, I've already done my absence of mug up. Next, the segment is called La, which again, middle of summer, I'm not wearing any knitwear. Typically what I do is, La is the segment where we talk about what I'm wearing. I am all over the place today, so my apologies. I'm just a little bit frantic today. Yeah, so anyway, La is the segment where we talk about what I'm wearing, and I'm not wearing any knitwear today because it is the middle of, well, it's nearing the end of summer right now, so I don't have anything with me on my body at the moment. I'm wearing a comfy shirt and comfy pants, and my feet aren't cold, so I'm not wearing any socks. Let's see. So today's episode, we are going to have 1 work in progress, and spoiler alert, 3 finished objects. I am so excited to share these with you. This is just basically a finished objects parade. I have talked about this in my previous episode where I was kind of just getting my groove back, and I was starting to feel a little bit more of my knitting mojo. So yeah, I'm all knitting mojo. I am super inspired, and like I said, I finished 3 objects, so we'll get to those when we get into Yes By, which is the segment where we talk about finished objects. But before we get there, I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to go into Whatta Ya At. Whatta Ya At is where we talk about the projects that I'm currently working on, so my works in progress. I have one to speak of this time, and the only reason I have one is because I have 3 finished objects. So, without further ado, the work in progress that I'm working on is in a very old school polka dot creek bag where Shelley had, I think it was just the bag back then. Again, this was a little bit old school. This was before she had the brick and mortar store. But there you can see I've got a cute little sock pin. I hope that's... And then the yarn Christmas tree. And then on the back side I've got my Creekside Yarn Festival pin. Again, I hope that's showing. Just a cute little drawstring bag. In it are my Chemo Christmas socks. So, again, if you rewind back several months, I did an episode called The 3 F's, and I talked about frogging it, finishing it, or F it, F-U-C-K it. So I decided that I still wanted to do these socks. They are the only thing that I had the only reservation, I guess you would say, that I had was that I didn't like the fact that they were tied to a chemo treatment. So I remember casting them on and working on them when I was having chemo, and that's just not a memory that I wanted to think about. But they're cute little Christmas socks. I quite enjoy knitting on self-striping yarn. I didn't buy the yarn for the intention of knitting them during chemo. I bought the yarn to have a pair of Christmas socks to go in my Christmas box of socks, which if you are new here, you haven't heard me talk about before, and it's nowhere near Christmas, so I probably wouldn't be talking about them. But again, if you rewind back and you go to my Vlogmas, which is the December 1st to December 25th, or December 24th, I believe, I open up a box and I have a pile of Christmas socks in there. My plan is to have 25 pairs of Christmas socks. So that was my intention of buying this yarn and knitting these socks. So far, I have this one, which is 90% done. All it is requiring is a heel. So it's just the toe, the tube, and the ribbing. I talk about my vanilla sock recipe in almost every episode, but it's a Turkish cast on, toe up. I increase to 72 stitches on 2mm needles. I knit until I like the length, and then I do a ribbing, and then I do an afterthought heel. So this is the first one. I'll put it up close so you can see. It has a stitch marker. I believe this was Polka Dot Creek. I don't know where they came from. Probably, oh gosh, I can't remember the name. If I can find out the name, I'll put it below. Also, should note, everything that I talk about in this week's episode will be linked in the description box, which you can find right below this video. But the cute little Christmas stitch marker, please. There we go. So that is the almost finished sock. And then I cast on yesterday, which was, you know, less than 24 hours ago. Now I've got a tangle in here. And I've got the toe and, you know, one stripe repeat of another color ready to go for the second sock. So I've got a little bit of progress made on those. Again, not a ton of progress. All I've gotten is just the toe and that little bit, like I've said. This one was finished ages and ages ago. Or not finished, but almost ready for the heel ages and ages ago. Yeah, the reason I don't have a ton of whips is because I finished 3 objects. So that will conclude Whatta Ya At and segue right into Yes Bye. Yes Bye is where we talk about the things that I have finished. The language around Yes Bye in Newfoundland, Yes Bye is a catch-all phrase where it talks about, like, it basically means, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, it's yes bye. You did that, yes bye. So in knitting, and as many of you who are watching will likely know, when you are wearing something and somebody finds out that you've made it, their response is, wow, that's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. You made that? So if you translate that into Newfoundlandese, it's yes bye. So that's where yes bye comes from. So I've got 3 finished objects. I am going to start out with one that is pretty simple. All I needed to do was put in a heel. I have my National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation socks finished off the needles. Yarn, or yeah, the ends are darned in. I did not block them. Actually, just pause for a second. I'm going to go get a sock blocker so I can show them to you. They are living in my National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation bag, which was made by Sew Shannon and part of the Canadian Countdown to Christmas calendar last year. So pause for just a second. I'm going to go get a sock blocker. So I was about to show you my National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation socks. My apologies. I had to go get a sock blocker. Here we go. And here they are with a gray contrasting heel, toe, and cuff. I absolutely love them. I love that they are Christmassy if you want them to be Christmassy, but they don't have to be. They're not your typical red and green Christmas where you sort of feel like you have to wear Christmas. You have to wear at Christmas. These look like they can be worn pretty much at any time. So both socks completed. Really loving them. Really glad that I finished them. Like I said, it only took me to finish the heel on one of them because the other one was already done, and to darn in all the ends. And now they're ready for my Christmas box of socks. So these will, although they don't look super Christmassy, they are Christmassy enough to end up in my Christmas box of socks. And I actually should probably do a count because I'm not exactly sure where I'm at in my box of socks requirements, how many I need, how many left I need to knit. But I'll do that before my next episode. So we're going to take those out of this bag, and then this bag can have another pair of Christmas socks put into it and ready to go. I will likely cast on another pair of socks because I always have 1 or 2 on the go. I do have the Chemo Christmas socks, but I'll probably get another pair on as well. So that's the National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation socks finished and off the needles, ready to be worn. The next thing, finished and off the needles and ready to be worn, is probably my oldest whip that I had until now. So until I finished it, obviously. This is the Slouchy sweater dress by Yarnspirations. It is made with Bernat roving in the Flint colorway. The pattern is free on the Yarnspirations website, so I think if you just go to yarnspirations.com and then you can look up the Slouchy sweater dress, and it will find, you probably can even just Google Slouchy sweater dress Yarnspirations and it'll come up. But it is finished. I'm going to pull it all the way up so you can see how long it is. What I will likely try to get done is a couple of finished object photos where, because I literally don't have any of this one because it's been summer and there's no way I'm putting on this giant sweater dress. But it is super cozy feeling. I love this cowl neck. I cannot say enough about the cowl neck. I am a little bit concerned about the arms. I did do what the pattern called for, and they just seem really tight to me. Like I said, I haven't tried it on yet, so I don't know if it fits. It's way too warm here for me to be trying on sweater dresses. But I wanted to show that, and I will, like I said, if I can and it cools down a little bit and I can put it on and maybe get my husband to take some photos, I'll take some photos and insert them here. If I haven't done that, I will do that in the near future and share those with you, because this sweater dress is so cute, so cozy, and it's going to be so perfect for fall. I cannot wait to wear it. Have I talked about this cowl neck, how warm and cozy this is going to be when I do finally get to wear it this fall? So that's that. That is the Slouchy sweater dress by Yarnspirations. It's a free pattern knit with Bernat roving in the Flint colorway. That's that. I'm really excited. I'm so glad to show it to you. I'm going to show it to you one more time. The only thing that I modified in this was that I did not add pockets. Again, I mentioned this in my previous episode. If I had my time back, I would have just done it at the time when I started knitting this, which was probably more like 10 years ago, if not longer than that. I know it was before I had my kids, and my oldest is 7.5. I think it was before I met my husband, and we've been together for 12 years. So that'll tell you. We're just over 12 years. So that'll tell you how long this has been on the needles. I'm so pumped to have it done. But like I said, the pockets at the time were a little bit daunting for me. So if I had my time back, I would have done the pockets, but I did not, and I'm sure I'm still going to love this dress just as much. All right. Are you ready for the... I don't know. I'm going to just wait a second and see if any of you can guess. If you think you know what's coming next, write it in the comments below. I finally finished my flax sock. My flax sock is done and off the needles and blocked. I have not darned the ends in yet, and I haven't taken out all of my stitch markers, but it is done and blocked. It feels so beautiful. If you don't block your knits, I don't know what to say. Blocking makes all the world of difference. If I can give advice to any new knitter, block your knits. Block your knits. Block your knits. I used to be of the mindset that I would only block my knits if they were made from nice wool, as opposed to, and I say nice wool, as opposed to acrylic. I block my acrylic knits. I blocked my sweater dress. It makes a world of difference. So if you do not block your knits, please stop this video and go block all of your knits, and then come back and tell me how amazing it feels when you have had your knits blocked. So I wish I had taken a before and after. Actually, I may be able to have a before picture, and if I do have a before picture, I'll post it here, and I will circle the area where you can tell where I did helical knitting. So a little bit about the flax sock. Actually, let me rewind a little bit. The flax sock is a pattern by Tin Can Knits. It was a project that I started more than a year ago, way before the podcast started. Not way before, but a significant amount of time before the podcast started. I just wasn't feeling it. It was fingering weight knitting and decreases on sleeves, so I was stuck on Sleeve Island forever and ever. And I did not have the brain space to actually think enough to do the decreases, to count the rows. And to be honest, I didn't have any knitting mojo. I wasn't knitting anything at all. So the flax sock by Tin Can Knits, it is knit out of Polka Dot Creek eucalyptus in the 75/25 superwash merino nylon yarn that they carry, fingering weight. I think I said this earlier. I'm just going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that I am all over the place today. So you know who made the pattern, you know who got the yarn, you know that I've been working on this for over a year. And what I was going to say about blocking your knits is I'm going to put a photo here of, if I can find it, and if you can see the helical knitting. When I was making this, because it's hand-dyed yarn, I was alternating skeins. That's another tip I would say, is if you don't, with hand-dyed yarn, you must alternate skeins. I have been burned one too many times. I have been burned on this sweater, actually, where I had a little smidge of yarn left from a previous skein, and I was about to start the sleeve, and I thought, oh, I'll just alternate skeins with this one, and but I knit a few rows of it first, and there was a very obvious line. Polka Dot Creek does an incredible job with hand dyeing, but that's just the nature of hand-dyed yarn, is it will have differences and you will be able to see them. So if you don't block your knits, and if you don't alternate skeins, alternate skeins. Those are your two little tidbits of information for today. But back to the blocking of the knits. If you can see here, I've already posted a photo, if I can find it, of where you can actually see the helical knitting, and it goes around and around and around the sleeve. After blocking, I can barely, And only because I know that it's there. I can barely see a line, I think. And I might just be making that up. But blocking... Oh no, I hooked it. I don't know what I hooked it with, but I hooked something. Blocking your knits makes the world of difference to... It just lets your stitches relax. It lets the sweater or whatever it is that you're blocking take the shape that it needs to take. And in this case, I actually showed this sweater when it was finished to my sister, or when it was almost finished to my sister-in-law, and her first comment was, gee, that looks really small. It isn't. It stretches, and because it's superwash, when I blocked it, I put it exactly in the shapes and in the dimensions that I wanted it to be, and it worked out, and has worked out quite nicely. So this is the Flax Light, or now called the Flax Sock, in its wonderful, wonderful glory. I made 2 modifications with this sweater. I followed the pattern. It's a free pattern by Tinkin. You can do neck shaping if you like. I chose not to. At the time when I was starting this one, I was feeling just like I just wanted to dive right into a sweater, so I cast immediately onto the neck. And I did not do any short rows in the back to do any neck shaping. The other thing is on the sleeves, there is a garter stitch pattern. I omitted the garter stitch pattern on the sleeves. I just wanted to have a plain Jane green sweater, so I omitted the pattern on the sleeves. And then finally I'm not a fan of 1x1 rib. I don't know if the way I knit it, it looks sloppy, but I don't like that, so I do 2x2 rib. So I did 2x2 rib on the cuff, the hem, and the neckline. And those were the modifications that were made. That is my Flax Light, or my Flax Sock sweater by Tin Can Knits, and the yarn is by Polka Dot Creek. I'm so pumped, so excited to wear it. Again, fall will not come soon enough. If I'm sure you watch other podcasts, you've probably heard all of the podcasters talking about fall and how it's their favorite time of year. I am no different. Fall is my absolute favorite time of year. And my only complaint about fall is that I wish it lasted longer. In where I live in central Alberta, Canada, it is cold for like 6 months of the year. So we have cold, snowy, wet weather. And I say wet weather. It's wet in that there's precipitation and like there's snow on the ground. It's not wet as in wet snow, thankfully. We have a very dry sort of dusting of snow that comes, but usually there's a fair amount of it, and for a long period of time. So, not a big fan of winter, huge fan of fall, and I'm really excited to break out all of my knitwear to start wearing them and putting them back into circulation. Alright. Twacking is our next segment. I am proud to say I have done 0 shopping. I will, a little spoiler when we talk about it now to once, I have been doing a little shopping in my own stash. I have been looking for 100-gram skeins of fingering weight that I can do something with, which I won't share with you until we get to now to once. I'm so excited to just look at my yarn and touch it and feel it. I've got a ridiculous collection of Polka Dot Creek fingering skeins. Most of them are variegated, not variegated, speckled. But yeah, I'm really excited to shop my stash. So I don't feel that I'm missing out on anything. We're almost through August, and other than buying a Christmas advent calendar, I don't feel like I've sort of, what's the word, I'm missing out. Like I'm not missing out on anything by not shopping. I will say I do feel a little bit bummed that I missed out on Knit City Canada, or Knit City Calgary. I was out of town the weekend that Knit City Calgary was here, so I, again, didn't get to go shopping, didn't get to go twacking around there either, but I did do a little bit of online. I was watching people and following along in stories and Instagram and all that jazz, and really enjoyed sort of virtually shopping with people. So that was quite fun. But that's all there is for the twacking segment. I have nothing else to share with you for that. My apologies. Now the once. Now the once is where we talk about what I plan to do, what I plan to knit. Right out of the gate, I'm just going to say I still plan to knit a skirt. I may still do that. And since I've gotten 2 sweaters off the needles, I will likely cast on another sweater, but maybe a skirt is in my future first, but I'm not 100% sure. So we shall see. I will keep you posted on that. If I'm going to do that, I know that I have some gray. Let me see if it's behind me. Yes, I do have some gray right here, some Polka Dot Creek. That is my plan, I believe, for that skirt. I'm assuming it's a fingering weight pattern. The pattern that I'm referring to is, oh gosh, I've forgotten it again, so I'll put it below, but it's by Knitatude. Now I don't think it is a fingering weight pattern. I think it might be DK. Anyway, I will put it here and I'll link it below. So I might have to make a new plan, a new color scheme plan. But anyway, skirt, hopefully in my future, so we shall see where that comes in. The other possible knit that I am thinking about casting on, I have to say I am influenced, I'm heavily influenced by Taylor from Wool Needles Hands. Taylor just has a very similar aesthetic to what I feel that I have. The things that she knits, the colors that she chooses. Although I will say the Flea sweater that she is currently knitting, she talked about in the last episode that she was a little gutsy, I guess is the term I would use. A little gutsy with her color choices. I don't know that I would be that gutsy, but she understands color theory a lot better than I do, so I'll probably go with, you know, again, some colors that I have here already and see if I can get them to work. But again, heavily influenced by Taylor of Wool Needles Hands, and I'm considering doing a Flea sweater. I don't know if I want to do a fingering weight color work, although simple color work sweater right after doing the flax, considering it took me as long as it did to do a very plain just flax. I'm not sure. I don't know if the color work will feel more-ish, or if it will be potato chippy for me, or if it will sort of stunt my knitting progress, but we'll see. I haven't cast it on yet. I don't know for sure. That's the whole purpose of Now to Once, is it's a bit of dream knitting, it's a little bit of goal knitting. But yeah, I have a couple of things that I still have, a couple of whips that I have to work through. I don't intend on working through all of my whips before I cast on something else. That is not typically how I roll. I like to cast on things as I cast them on, and I like to work on them as I work on them. So I'm not putting any pressure on myself to finish something before I cast on something else. But those are the two things that are sort of top of mind, a skirt and the Flea sweater. Yep, still can't remember the name of the skirt. Anyway, but it is by Knitatude. The other thing that I know that I will finish, and that is sort of just on the needles, because it's the easiest thing that I have on my needles right now, is the Chemo socks. I plan to get those off the needles as relatively quickly as possible. Again, I'm not putting any pressure on myself, but because it's just all stockinette and I just knit in the round, those will likely be my go-to knitting for the next little while. I have put a bit of a pause on my blanket, on the Jelly Roll blanket. I had a bit of a snafu with my dog, who tangled it all and chewed a bunch, and anyway, I just wasn't really feeling a lot of joy with where I was in the blanket, and then considering I have to figure out how long I'm going to make it, and then start figuring out the next step, which is picking up a stitch on every row and sort of sorting that out. So I put a bit of a pause on that just for now, and I will pick that up again later. Again, no pressure. I'm not pressuring myself. I just will pick it up when I feel like it. That's the purpose of that blanket, is just to sort of be an ongoing whip. So yeah, no big pressure there. I will say that I have a couple of other projects. My Newfoundland flag, for example, is one that is crocheted that I could be picking up, and some of the clothes for my kids' stuffies that I made for them. So I made my daughter a giraffe and my son a sloth, and I have a couple of items of clothing that I could finish sewing together and putting on the giraffe or the sloth, but again, not sure where I'm going to go with those things. I think that's it for Now to Once. Oh, I already talked about how I want to cast on another pair of Christmas socks, so I'll probably pick out some fancy Christmas yarn and do a pair of Christmas socks as well, other than my Chemo Christmas socks, because those are almost finished. I like to have something where usually I try to do a toe so that I can get straight to the straight knitting, and I like to have one or two of those on the needles at any given time, so that if I'm working on the toe on one, I'm working on the straight part of another. If I'm working on the straight part of the first one, and I'm probably on the heel of the second one, so I'm working on things that are brainless and then not so brainless, or mindless, not so mindless. Next segment is called Jigs and Reels. Jigs and Reels is where we talk about the things that I'm watching, reading, or listening to. Listening to the same old. I listen to the same CDs in my car. I started listening a little bit to the radio, but not as much anymore. And watching just some regular trashy reality TV. So my typical go-tos for anyone that's new here, actually I'm not even sure if I've mentioned it before, but is 90 Day Fiancé and things like Love is Blind or Married at First Sight, those types of things. I will watch those. What I am reading, I'm reading The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. I love Kate Quinn. If you're new here, you've not heard me talk about her before, but I absolutely love her books. I've read the Rose Code, the Diamond Dye, and the other one I read, the Alice Network. So I read 3 of those, and I'm currently reading The Briar Club. Liking it so far. I'm not as far into my reading because I've noticed that I'm really picking up on my knitting mojo, so I'm spending more time knitting and watching podcasts. I'm loving it. The only time I really get to read is when I get in the tub, which that's actually what my husband is working on right now. So our house was built in 1991, and the people that built the house built in a jetted tub, but they built in the tub and they had not built any access to any of the plumbing. So my husband had to cut out a section. He ended up cutting 3 sections of wall plus a section of the tub which was covered in tile. Anyway, it was a big ordeal yesterday to find that the faucet that needed to be replaced, because the hot water one was really loose, it needed to be replaced. There was actually a small leak. Thankfully he was able to fix that, but it ended up that we had 3 massive holes in several places in our home, and finally a hole in the side of the tub. So I probably, the moral of the story, probably won't get a ton of reading done because my husband is going to be working on that and fixing all of those things. So where was I? What was I talking about? That's why I'm doing more knitting and reading. Knitting than reading. That was a roundabout way to talk about that. I'm apologizing. Today is a hot mess, and it just is what it is, and I apologize for that. Best Kind. Best Kind is the segment where we talk about things that warm my soul or fill my cup. I have a couple of things to talk about in this segment. So I have been on a relatively long cancer journey. In September, I'll be 2 years of dealing with my cancer journey. And my diagnosis was September 16th of 2022. I have since had several bouts of chemo, radiation, immunotherapy, tons of blood work. I've just been poked and prodded and picked at and assessed, and I've had CT scans and MRIs and PET scans, and with all of that comes a significant amount of fatigue. So chemo and radiation particularly can really knock you down. I was finally starting to feel normal after my first bout of chemo when I started my second bout of chemo, my second sort of section of treatments. And this particular session of chemo, these last 6 sessions that I had, were just very, very hard and very, very challenging, and I found myself to be extremely tired all the time. So I stopped wearing my Garmin watch. I wear a Garmin, I'll link it below, I can't remember the name of it, Forerunner, I think, 4S. Anyway, it's a pedometer, it records your activity, it records your heart rate, it does all kinds of funky things. And so I wear that every day, or I was wearing that every day, and it was showing me that I was so inactive. I was very, very sedentary. I would, if I was lucky, maybe get 500 steps a day because I was spending a lot of time sleeping. If I wasn't sleeping, I would walk to the couch or the washroom, or I would go get something to eat, but I was in a state of fatigue constantly. So what I ended up doing was I took it off because I was finding that it was really hard for me, for my soul, basically, to see how sedentary that I was being. And at the time I was putting on weight, and I was just feeling really bummed about where I was in my journey and how I was feeling. So I took off my Garmin watch and I put it aside, and I put on a regular watch because I like to know what time it is without using my phone. And yesterday I recharged my Garmin and I put it back on. So 2 weeks ago on Thursday, I had a blood transfusion, and it made the world of difference. I was chronically fatigued. I had, you know, chronically low platelets, chronically low hemoglobin. My numbers were just very, very low. My magnesium was low. I'd just been fighting an uphill battle. So I got a blood transfusion at the recommendation of my doctor, and I felt like $1 million. Now, I'm just going to say this is not a podcast where we're going to talk about any belief systems or things like that. It was what was right for me at the time, and so that's what I did. I feel amazing. I know my numbers are still... I'm going to have to go because that's my doctor. Just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. I was waiting for a call from my from my oncology team about a couple of questions I had, so I had to take that. Where was I? We were talking about, what were we talking about? Oh, wearing my Garmin watch. So I had been really sedentary. I didn't wear my watch. I finally decided yesterday to charge it and put it back on. And I've set up some new goals for myself, and it just feels really, really good. It feels great. Oh, I was talking about blood transfusions. Had a blood transfusion. Feel like $1 million. My numbers are still low, but I do have quite a bit of... I've had a better response, a very good response to the blood transfusion, and feel great. So feeling like I can do some more activity. I'm walking more. I'm getting more steps in. I'm able to do more flights of stairs and, you know, not pass out, all those types of things. It just feels amazing, and I'm really excited about it. So, wearing my Garmin, feeling great. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was yoga. So, sort of in line with the same things. Because I've been feeling so much better, this morning I did a very brief yoga session. I did 15 minutes of yoga, and again, really enjoying myself, and knowing that I'm moving my body feels amazing. So if you're out there and you're feeling that, you know, you're feeling a little bit sluggish, if you start slow, start easy. My target is 2,500 steps a day. Typically my previous target was 10,000 steps a day. Right now my target is 2,500, and I want to get 25 intensity minutes a week right now, because quite honestly, walking up the stairs is still quite challenging for me. If you're in the same boat, maybe give it a shot. Talk to your doctor about what some of your options might be, but move slowly, take it easy, and make some achievable goals for yourself. It feels really great to be moving again. All right, so that's all I had in Best Kind, and that's all I have for the episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time. Come on, Terry. How many times are you going to do that? Until next time, keep living your best life and filling up your cup, and I will see you in 2 weeks, unless something changes and I'm not able to see you because of some of my things that I've got going on. Keep filling up your cup, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, I still want to say keep fit and have fun. Stay where you're to till I comes where you're at. I'm going to try that again and see if I can cut that section out. Until next time, keep living your best life and filling up your cup, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Until then, stay where you're to till I comes where you're at. Bye.